People think the worst kind of silence comes after a scream. They are wrong. The worst silence is the one that greets you when you lift the phone expecting a child's voice and hear only the hollow click of a line gone dead. My name is Evelyn Hart. Everyone who ever needed me at 3 a.m. called me Evie. I spent 34 years answering emergency calls in Clark County, Ohio. That job taught me 3 things I still carry in my bones. First, people lie with their voices long before their fists ever move. Second, paper can bleed you dry before a single bruise shows on your skin. Third, grandmothers do not retire from worry. We just change uniforms. Before we go any further, tell me where you are watching from and tap subscribe to Her Legacy Tales, where every story reminds us that the quiet ones are often the ones who save the day. Now, back to the morning everything cracked open. It was Friday, October 17th, just past 6:30 in the morning. I was already awake. Old dispatchers do not sleep past dawn. The world might need us. The coffee pot gurgled in the kitchen, the radio murmured the farm report, and the house smelled of yesterday's cinnamon bread. My yellow house on Maple Lane had stood here since 1968. Same creaky floors, same stubborn radiator that clanked like an old friend clearing his throat. Jamie had lived here since he was 7, after his mother, my only daughter, lost her fight with the pills. He was 19 now, tall enough to reach the top shelf without a stool. Still slept with the same threadbare quilt I sewed when he started kindergarten. I expected his footsteps on the stairs any minute. He always came down yawning, hair sticking up like a dandelion, asking if the bacon was ready. I had laid 2 strips in the skillet, the way he liked them, crisp, but not burned. The bacon popped. No footsteps. I wiped my hands on the dish towel and called up the staircase. "Jamie, you decent? Breakfast is hot." Only the radiator answered. I smiled to myself. 19-year-olds sleep like the dead when the world lets them. I turned the burner low and climbed the stairs, slow because my left knee still reminds me every morning that I am 71. His door stood ajar. That was odd. Jamie closed his door even when he was alone, said it kept the ghosts out. I pushed it open with 2 fingers. The bed was made, corners tucked tight the way I taught him in the Army surplus days. His phone charger lay coiled on the nightstand like a dead snake. No phone, no wallet, no Jamie. A small, familiar tightness settled behind my ribs. I had felt it 1,000 times on the headset when a caller's voice cracked and the address came up wrong. I told myself not to borrow trouble. Kids oversleep. Kids forget to charge phones. Kids leave notes. There was no note. I went back downstairs, poured coffee I did not drink, and dialed his number, straight to voicemail. His greeting still the same recording from last. "Christmas. You've reached Jamie Hart, future paramedic, currently saving lives or eating cereal. Leave a message." I left one. "Call me when you wake up, honey. Bacon's getting cold." The bacon cooled. The coffee cooled. By 7:15, the tightness had spread to my throat. I opened the banking app on my phone, the one Jamie set up for me last year so I would stop driving to the teller window. I only ever checked the balance on the 1st of the month. Today was not the 1st. I tapped anyway. The screen loaded. Savings, $47.12. Yesterday it had been $9,412. My hand did not shake. Training keeps the hand steady even when the heart stumbles. I refreshed the screen. Same numbers. I opened the transaction history. One withdrawal, timestamp 2:14 this morning, $9,365 to cash. The bacon smell turned sour in my nose. I sat down hard at the kitchen table. The chair creaked the way it always did when weight landed too fast. $9,365 was every penny I had saved for Jamie's paramedic school. We had planned to pay the first semester in January. He had circled the date on the calendar with a red heart. The calendar still hung on the fridge, heart intact, mocking me. I forced my dispatcher brain to take over. Step 1. Secure the scene. I called the bank's fraud line. The automated voice asked for my account number. I recited it without looking. After 3 menus and 2 holds, a human named Karen came on the line. She sounded 12. Mrs. Hart, I show a large cash withdrawal at the downtown ATM. Do you authorize this transaction? No, I said. My voice did not shake either. Good, Karen typed. Keys clicked like rain on a tin roof. I've frozen the account. You'll need to come in and sign an affidavit. Do you have any idea who might have access to your card? I closed my eyes. Only one other person had ever touched that card. Jamie had driven me to the grocery store last week when the snow started early. He had pumped gas, bought milk, carried the bags. I had handed him the debit card without a second thought. Trust is a quiet thing until it is not. I thanked Karen, hung up, and opened the checkbook in the junk drawer. The drawer smelled of rubber bands and old coupons. I flipped to the register. 1 check missing, number 1047. The perforation was clean, torn straight, the way Jamie always tore them when he paid the electric bill for me. I stared at the empty space until the numbers blurred. Outside, the mail truck rumbled past. Inside, the radiator clanked again. I stood up, walked to the front window, and looked at the driveway. Jamie's beat-up Civic was gone. He had told me last night he was working the late shift at the warehouse, home by midnight. I had left the porch light on. The bulb was still glowing, weak and yellow against the morning. I dialed his. Phone again. Voicemail. I left a second message, softer this time. Jamie, honey, call me. I'm worried, that's all. The bacon sat cold and congealed on the plate. I wrapped it in foil, put it in the fridge, and opened his laptop on the counter. He never locked it, said passwords were for people with something to hide. The desktop background was still the photo of us at Cedar Point last summer, both of us sunburned, eating funnel cake, laughing like the world could never touch us. I clicked the banking shortcut. Same withdrawal, same timestamp, same empty space where our future had been. I closed the lid. My reflection stared back from the black screen, older than I remembered. 71 years of answering other people's emergencies, and now my own sat in front of me, quiet and patient. I picked up the house phone, the one with the long cord I still refused to replace, and dialed the warehouse. The manager, Carl, answered on the 3rd ring. Jamie didn't come in last night, he said. Said he had a family thing. Everything okay, Evie? I told him everything was fine. Lying comes easy when you have practiced it for strangers. I hung up and stood in the middle of the kitchen, listening to the house breathe. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard settled. Somewhere outside, a dog barked once and stopped. Somewhere inside me, a small, steady voice whispered the protocol I had recited to panicked callers for decades. Stay calm. Gather facts. Do not assume the worst until the worst proves itself. I opened the front door. The October air carried wood smoke and fallen leaves. Across the street, Mrs. Delgado was already watering her mums. She lifted a hand in greeting. I lifted mine back. Normal. Everything looked normal, except nothing was. I went back inside, pulled on my coat, and grabbed my purse. The bank opened at 8. I would be there when the doors unlocked. I would sign whatever needed signing. I would ask for the camera footage. I would find my grandson. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. One new text. I opened it. Tell anyone and you will never see him again. The screen went dark in my hand. I stood in the doorway, coat half buttoned, breath fogging the cold glass. The drive to the bank took 7 minutes, but every traffic light felt like a lifetime. I kept the radio off. Silence was better for thinking, and I needed every clear corner of my mind. The downtown branch sat on the corner of Main and 3rd, red brick with brass letters that had faded to the color of weak tea. I parked in the handicapped spot. My knee earned that blue placard, and walked inside before the lobby clock struck 8:15. Karen from the fraud line recognized me right away. She had the face of someone who had never seen a real emergency, only numbers on a screen. She led me to a small office that smelled of burnt coffee and lemon polish. A manila folder already waited on the desk, my name typed in block letters. She opened it and slid the top page toward me. A grainy still from the ATM camera, timestamp 2:14 in the morning. A hooded figure in Jamie's favorite gray sweatshirt, head down, one hand feeding my debit card into the machine. The other hand held something small, a phone, maybe, angled away from the lens. I studied the slope of the shoulders, the way the left foot turned out just enough to favor an old soccer injury. That was Jamie's body. But the way he moved, quick and furtive, belonged to someone else. Karen cleared her throat. "We'll need you to sign the dispute form and the police report if you choose to file one." I took the pen she offered. The ink was black and thick. "I'll sign," I said, "but first I want every frame you have." She hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes later, a USB drive lay in my palm, warm from the printer. I slipped it into my coat pocket like contraband. Back home, the house felt larger without Jamie's music leaking through the floorboards. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee I still did not drink and sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open beside mine. The USB plugged in with a soft click. The video played in silence. Jamie, or the person wearing his sweatshirt, counted the cash twice, thick stacks of hundreds, then stuffed them into a black backpack. He never looked up. Not once. I paused on the clearest frame, zoomed until the pixels blurred, and saved it to the desktop under the name Evidence Joe 1. I opened the checkbook again. The missing stub was still gone, but the carbon copy beneath it held a faint imprint. I held it to the window light. Faint blue letters, cash. Amount, $9,365. Date, yesterday. The handwriting looked like Jamie's looping capital C, the same one he used on birthday cards. But the pressure was wrong. Too heavy, like someone pressing down to make sure the copy transferred. I laid a sheet of tracing paper over it, the kind I used to keep for grandkids' art projects, and rubbed a pencil across until the ghost letters appeared. Same slant, same flourish on the Y. But the T crossed lower than Jamie ever crossed his. Someone had practiced. The landline rang. I let it ring twice before lifting the receiver. Sergeant Ruiz's voice came through, gravelly from too many night shifts. "Evie, you called about a welfare check?" I had not called him yet. I had planned to. "Ruiz, can you come by? Off the record for now. Give me 20. While I waited, I walked the house the way I used to walk a crime scene over the radio, slow, deliberate, eyes open for anything out of place. Jamie's room smelled faintly of the cedar candle he burned when he studied. His laundry basket held one sock, navy with tiny fire trucks, a leftover from middle school. I lifted it, pressed it to my face, and inhaled the scent of fabric softener and teenage boy. Nothing else seemed missing. His paramedic textbook sat stacked on the desk, page, markers still in Chapter 6. His work boots stood by the door, laces knotted the way he always left them. I opened the closet. Empty hangers swayed. 3 shirts gone. The duffel bag he took to the gym, gone. Ruiz arrived in plain clothes, badge tucked inside his jacket pocket the way I taught him. He filled the doorway, 6'3" and broad, but his eyes were soft when they met mine. Talk to me, Evie. I laid it out. The withdrawal, the camera still, the check, the missing clothes. I did not mention the text. Not yet. Ruiz listened without interrupting, the way good officers do. When I finished, he rubbed the back of his neck. You think he's in trouble, or he's the trouble? I looked at the framed photo on the mantel, Jamie at 16, holding his first EMT certificate, grinning like the world had handed him a prize. I think he's both, I said. Ruiz borrowed the laptop and the USB. I'll pull the plates on his Civic. And I'll have patrol swing by the warehouse again, see if anyone remembers him clocking out. He paused at the door. You sit tight. Don't go chasing shadows alone. I nodded, but we both knew I would not sit tight. After he left, I stood on the porch and watched the street the way I used to watch a map on the dispatch screen, waiting for the next call to light up. Mrs. Delgado was still watering her mums. She lifted the hose in greeting again. This time I crossed the street. Morning, Dolores. You see anything odd last night? Around midnight, 1 o'clock? She set the hose down, water pooling around her orthopedic shoes. Matter of fact, yes. Jamie's car left around 11:30, but it came back an hour later, parked crooked like he was in a hurry. Then a U-Haul pulled up, small one. Jamie and a girl loaded boxes. Didn't take long, maybe 20 minutes. They drove off together. My pulse thudded once, hard. A girl? Dark hair, tattoo on her neck, looked like a snake. Never seen her before. I thanked her and walked back inside before my legs gave out. The U-Haul rental place was 10 minutes away. I drove with the windows down, October air sharp against my cheeks. The clerk remembered the truck. Rented yesterday afternoon. Name on the contract, Evelyn Hart. My name, my signature, or close enough. The clerk slid the paperwork across the counter. The loops on the E were too round, the T crossed too high. I took a photo with my phone, thanked him, and left before he could ask questions. Back home, I opened Jamie's laptop again. This time, I looked deeper. Hidden folder inside the recycling bin, password protected. I tried his mother's birthday, locked. His dog's name, locked. Then I typed the date he got his driver's license, 16 years ago today. The folder opened. Inside, scanned copies of my driver's license, my social security card, 3 blank checks I had never missed, a cryptocurrency wallet app with a balance of $47,000 in something called Luna Coin, eviction notices addressed to Jamie at an apartment I had never heard of, and a Word document titled Plan. I opened it. Step 1, move money in small chunks. Step 2, stage disappearance. Step 3, grandma signs house over to trust. Step 4, liquidate, split, vanish. My stomach turned, but I kept reading. Dates, amounts. A name, Lila Moreau, circled in red. The snake tattoo girl. I printed everything, the printer wheezing like it resented the job. The pages stacked warm in my hand, evidence of a plan I had slept through. Ruiz texted, Civic spotted at a motel off Route 40, room 12. I'm en route. Stay put. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Staying put was never my strong suit. I grabbed my coat, the printed pages, and the USB. The porch light flickered once as I locked the door behind me. I left it on again. Old habits die hard. The motel sat on the edge of town, neon sign missing the M so it read, Hotel in buzzing pink. Ruiz's unmarked cruiser was already there, parked 2 spaces down from Jamie's Civic. He met me at the office door, eyebrows drawn together. Evie, I said stay put. I brought coffee, I lied, holding up an empty travel mug. He sighed and let me follow. Room 12's curtains were drawn tight. Ruiz knocked. Official, 3 raps. No answer. He knocked again. Police, open up. The door cracked. A girl peered out, eyes red-rimmed, dark hair tangled. The snake tattoo curled from her collarbone to her jaw. She looked at Ruiz, then at me, and her face crumpled. "He's gone," she whispered. "He took everything and left me with the bill." Ruiz stepped inside. I followed before he could stop me. The room smelled of stale smoke and cheap lavender. Clothes strewn across the bed, pizza box open on the dresser. Lila sat on the edge of the mattress, knees bouncing. "I didn't know," she said. "Not at first. He said it was his inheritance, that you were sick, dementia, that you wanted him to handle things." I opened the folder I carried and laid the plan printout on the table. "This look like dementia to you?" She stared at the pages, then at me, and started to cry without sound. Ruiz cuffed her gently, accessory after the fact, he said, and read her rights. She did not fight. While he called it in, I walked the room. In the trash can, a torn corner of yellow legal paper. My handwriting, or close enough. A single line, transfer title to Hart Family Trust. My signature beneath it, shaky but legible. I slipped the scrap into my pocket. Outside, the sun hung low, painting the parking lot gold. Ruiz loaded Lila into the cruiser. "We'll find him, Evie, but you need to let us." I nodded, but my eyes were on Jamie's Civic. The back seat held a duffel bag, zipper half open. I reached in and pulled out a hoodie. My hoodie, the one I wore on cold dispatch nights, sleeves frayed from years of leaning, on the console. Inside the pocket, a folded note in Jamie's real handwriting, the one I knew by heart. "Grandma, I'm sorry, I can fix this. Don't look for me yet." I pressed the note to my chest and felt the paper crumple against my heartbeat. The motel sign buzzed overhead, pink light flickering across the asphalt. Somewhere out there, my grandson was running with $9,000 of my future and a plan he thought I would never read. I looked at the sky, clear and cold, and made a promise to the empty air. "You can run, Jamie Hart, but you cannot outrun the woman who taught you how to come home." I still had the porch light on, and I still had the truth. The county jail smelled of bleach and burnt coffee, the same combination that used to cling to my uniform after double shifts. I signed the visitor log with a pen that scratched more than it wrote. The deputy behind the glass, Martinez, badge polished to a mirror, gave me a nod that carried 30 years of mutual respect. He had been a rookie when I talked him through his first foot chase over the radio. Now he buzzed me through without asking why a grandmother needed to see a girl with a snake tattoo at 9:30 on a Saturday morning. Lila sat at the metal table in an orange jumpsuit 2 sizes too big, sleeves rolled to her elbows. The snake on her neck looked faded under the fluorescent lights, like it had lost its venom overnight. She did not look up when I took the chair across from her. The guard stayed by the door, arms folded, close enough to hear, but far enough to pretend he wasn't listening. I set a paper cup of vending machine cocoa between us. "It's not poisoned," I said. She lifted her eyes then, hazel, bloodshot, younger than I expected. "I don't drink sugar." "Neither do I lied. "But it keeps the hands busy." She wrapped both palms around the cup anyway. I started gentle, the way I used to start with callers who said they were fine right up until they weren't. "Tell me about the night you met Jamie." She shrugged. "Gas station, 3 months ago. He bought me a Coke and said I looked like someone who needed a ride." I waited. Silence is a tool. I had used it on suicidal teens and hostage negotiators alike. Lila cracked first. "He talked about you all the time. Said you raised him after his mom died. Said you were the only person who never gave up on anybody." Her voice caught on the last word. I felt it in my sternum like a small fracture. I slid the plan printout across the table, the one I had taken from Jamie's laptop. This part where it says Grandma signs house over to trust? Whose idea? She stared at the page as if it might bite. His. But he made it sound kind, like you were sick and didn't want to be a burden. He showed me a doctor's note. I leaned forward. Show me. She hesitated, then reached into the pocket of the jumpsuit and pulled out a folded sheet. Cheap clinic letterhead. My name at the top. Diagnosis: early onset dementia, moderate memory impairment. Doctor's signature: illegible squiggle. Date: 6 weeks ago. I had never set foot in that clinic. I folded the note into my purse without a word. Lila, where did he go? She shook her head. He left me the motel key and a bus ticket to Dayton. Said he'd wire money once he closed the deal. That was 2 nights ago. I studied her face the way I used to study voices for micro tremors. She was lying about something, but not everything. Did he take anything besides my money? Her gaze flicked to the guard, then back to me. Your will. He had me scan it at the library. Said he needed to update the beneficiary. My mouth went dry. To who? She swallowed. Me. The room tilted, just enough that I gripped the table edge. 71 years old, and I could still feel the floor drop out from under me. I breathed through my nose until the spinning stopped. When? Last week. He said you asked him to. Said you wanted to make sure I was taken care of if anything happened to him. I closed my eyes. Jamie had sat at this same kitchen table last week, eating meatloaf, asking if I needed anything from the store. I had handed him $20 for milk. Trust is a quiet thing. I opened my eyes. Lila, listen carefully. That will is worthless without my signature in front of 2 witnesses and a notary. Did he have that? She shook her head. He said he'd get it later, after you were confused. The word landed between us like a stone. I let it sit. Then I asked the question I had come for. Where is he meeting the buyer for the house? She looked at her cocoa, steam long gone. Grain silo off County Road 9, midnight tomorrow. Said it had to be cash, no questions. I nodded once. Thank you. She grabbed my sleeve as I stood. Mrs. Hart, he's scared. Whoever he owes, they hurt people. He thinks this is the only way out. I looked down at her fingers, thin and trembling. There's always another way, I said. He just forgot who taught him that. Martinez walked me out. In the parking lot, the October wind whipped leaves across the asphalt like frantic messages. I sat in my car with the engine off and opened the glove compartment. Inside lay the small lockbox I kept for emergencies, my late husband's service revolver, unloaded, and a box of shells I had never touched. I left it closed. Some tools are for scaring yourself straight, not for using. I drove to the courthouse next. The clerk in the probate office owed me a favor from the night I kept her husband on the line, while paramedics restarted his heart. She pulled Jamie's file without questions. There it was. Articles of Incorporation for Hart Family Trust, filed 3 weeks ago. Trustee: James Michael Hart. Beneficiary: Evelyn Hart, contingent on incapacity. My signature at the bottom, witnessed by one Lila Moreau and a notary named Carl Jenkins. I knew Carl. He notarized my car title last year. His stamp was slightly crooked. This one sat perfectly straight. I took photos of every page. The clerk slipped me Carl's home address on a Post-it. I tucked it into my purse beside the fake doctor's note. Carl lived in a duplex with plastic flamingos on the porch. He answered the door in a Browns t-shirt, coffee mug in hand. Recognition flickered across his face. Evie Hart, been a while. I held up the trust document. This your stamp? He squinted, then paled. I might have signed something. Kid said it was for college funds. Said you were in the car, too shaky to come in. I waited. He rubbed his neck. Look, I was in a hurry. He paid cash. I didn't ask questions. I nodded. You will now. To a judge. He swallowed hard. I'll fix it. Whatever you need. I left him standing in the doorway, flamingos watching like pink sentries. Back home, the yellow house greeted me with its familiar creaks. I made a pot of tea I did not drink and spread every piece of paper across the kitchen table like a map of betrayal. Fake will, fake trust, fake diagnosis, real fear. I stared until the words blurred, then sharpened again. Jamie had built a house of cards on my name, and tomorrow night he planned to cash it in. I called Ruiz. He answered on the first ring. Tell me you're home safe. I'm home, I said, and I know where he'll be tomorrow at midnight. Silence. Then, Evie, you're not deputized. No, I said, but I'm the only one he'll listen to. Ruiz sighed the sigh of a man who had lost arguments with me before. We do this my way. Sting operation. You bring the bait, I bring the teeth. I agreed. We both knew I would bring more than bait. I hung up and opened Jamie's laptop one last time. The cryptocurrency wallet stared back, balance unchanged. $47,000 in digital ghosts. I took screenshots, emailed them to Ruiz, then opened the voice memo app. I pressed record. Jamie, this is Grandma. If you're listening, know this. I am not confused. I am not sick. And I am not selling our home to save you from mistakes you can still fix. Come home before midnight tomorrow. We'll face whatever you owe together. You are not alone unless you choose to be. I saved the file as Grandma Final and attached it to a text scheduled to send at 11:55 tomorrow night. Then I closed the laptop and carried it to the safe in my bedroom closet, the one my husband installed after a string of break-ins in 1982. I locked it inside with the revolver I still had not touched. Downstairs, I opened the blue folder I had started that morning. Inside, bank stills, trust papers, doctor's note, Carl's address, Lila's statement. I added a new page. Handwritten, steady letters. Assets to protect. 1. The yellow house on Maple Lane. 2. Jamie's future. 3. My name. I underlined the last one twice. The radiator clanked. Outside, the porch light glowed steady against the darkening sky. I left it on. Someone might need to find their way home. I sat at the table until the tea grew cold, listening to the house settle around me. Every creak sounded like footsteps that weren't there. I thought of Jamie at 7, curled on this same couch after nightmares, whispering, "Don't let the dark get me, Grandma." I had promised him it wouldn't. Promises are heavy things. They do not lighten with age. Tomorrow night I would stand in the shadow of a grain silo and keep that promise the only way I knew how, by walking into the dark myself. I still had the porch light on, and I still had a voice he had never stopped trusting. The afternoon before the silo meet dragged like a shift with no calls. I kept busy the way dispatchers do. Checklists, timelines, backup plans. I printed 2 copies of the house deed from the county website, crisp and official. One went into a plain manila envelope marked urgent, legal. The other I folded into a smaller square, slipped inside a second envelope, and sealed with tape strong enough to survive a flood. That one was the decoy. I labeled nothing on the outside. Labels invite questions. Ruiz came by at 4 with a vest and a look that said he still wished I would stay home. He laid the bulletproof vest on the table like a dare. Level 3. Stops most handgun rounds. I lifted it, heavy but not heavier than the promises I carried. I wore heavier headsets, I said. He almost smiled. You'll wear it under your coat, non-negotiable. I nodded. Negotiating was for people with time. We went over the plan in the kitchen, sunlight slanting through the window and striping the table like prison bars. Midnight at the old grain silo off County Road 9. Jamie would expect the deed and a signature. I would bring the decoy envelope and a pen that wrote in blue ink, close enough to look real under flashlight. Ruiz would be in the crawl space beneath the silo floor, wired for sound. 2 unmarked units would park a quarter-mile out, engines cold, lights off. A drone with night vision would circle high. No noise, no glow. If Jamie showed alone, we talked. If anyone else showed, we moved. Ruiz slid a small recorder across the table. Clip this inside your bra. Red button to start. It streams live to my phone. I raised an eyebrow. You planning to listen to my heartbeat all night? Planning to hear you say clear when it's safe to come out? I clipped it where he said. The plastic was cold against my skin. At 6, I cooked spaghetti I did not taste. The sauce bubbled and filled the house with garlic and tomato, the way it did every Sunday when Jamie was little. I set 2 plates, then put one back in the cupboard. Habits die harder than hope. I ate standing at the sink, fork scraping ceramic, eyes on the clock. At 7:30, I showered, dressed in dark jeans and the black sweater I wore to funerals. The vest went on last, snug but not tight. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had talked down armed men with nothing but a calm voice and a county map. Tonight, the map was memory, and the voice was still mine. Ruiz picked me up at 10:15. We drove in silence, his cruiser smelling of vinyl and gun oil. County Road 9 unrolled ahead, corn stubble silver under the moon. The silo rose against the sky like a rusted finger pointing at judgment. We parked half a mile out. Ruiz killed the engine. Crickets filled the quiet. He handed me a flashlight. Small, bright, easy to palm. You walk in at 11:55. Stand in the open doorway. Do not go inside until I give the word. I nodded. And if he's not alone? Then you stall. Talk about his mother. Talk about the tire swing. Talk about anything that keeps him facing you. I tucked the flashlight into my coat pocket beside the decoy envelope. We waited. The dashboard clock clicked to 11:40. Ruiz touched his earpiece, listening to the drone feed. Clear sky. No vehicles yet. 11:45. My pulse stayed steady. I had trained it that way. 11:50. Headlights flickered far down the road, then vanished. Ruiz's hand went to his holster. Could be him. The lights reappeared, closer, slower. Jamie's Civic rolled past the silo and stopped 30 yards away, nose pointed toward escape. The driver door opened. Jamie stepped out alone, hands visible, hoodie up. He looked smaller than I remembered. I opened the cruiser door. Cold air rushed in. Ruiz grabbed my wrist. Envelope in your left hand. Dominant hand free. Say the safe word if you need me. The safe word was cedar, the candle he burned when he studied. I nodded and stepped onto the gravel. Jamie watched me approach. Moonlight carved shadows under his eyes. He held no weapon I could see, only a backpack slung over one shoulder. When I was 10 feet away, he spoke, voice cracked and raw. You came. I always come when you call, I said. He flinched. Where's the deed? I lifted the decoy envelope. Where's your common sense? His mouth twisted. Funny, real funny, Grandma. I stopped just outside the silo door. The opening gaped behind me, black and smelling of rust and old grain. Take off the hood, Jamie. Let me see your face. He hesitated, then pushed it back. His hair stuck up in clumps. A bruise bloomed along his jaw, fresh and purple. I kept my voice level. Who hit you? Doesn't matter. It matters to me. He looked away. They want the house, all of it. Said they'd wipe the debt if I delivered tonight. I took one step closer. And you believed them? I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, I said. You just stopped asking. The right person. Behind me, gravel crunched. Soft, deliberate. Ruiz's signal. Someone else approaching. I did not turn. Jamie's eyes flicked past my shoulder, widened. I heard the low rumble of an engine, then two more. Headlights swept the field, pinning us in white. 3 pickup trucks formed a half circle, doors opening. 4 men stepped out, silhouettes against the glare. The closest one carried a shotgun loose at his side. The man with the shotgun spoke first, voice flat as the cornfields. Deed, now, or the kid starts losing fingers. Jamie's breath hitched. I felt the recorder warm against my skin. I raised the envelope. You want the house? You talk to me. Shotgun man laughed. Old lady wants to negotiate. Cute. I took another step forward, slow. You know what I did for 34 years? He didn't answer. I talked people out of killing themselves. Talked them out of killing each other. Talked them into putting the gun down and walking away. You're not the first man to think a weapon makes him loud enough to matter. His grip tightened on the shotgun. Jamie found his voice. Grandma, give it to them. Please. I looked at him. Really looked. The boy who used to fall asleep on my lap during thunderstorms was still in there, buried under fear and bad choices. I softened my tone. Jamie, remember the night the power went out and you were scared of the dark? I lit one candle and told you light always finds a way. You still believe that? He nodded, barely. I turned back to Shotgun Man. Here's the deal. You take this envelope, you get a deed that's already flagged for fraud. County recorder has the alert. Sign it, and you're on camera at the silo with a stolen document. You want clean money, you walk away now. He raised the shotgun. I want the house. Then you'll have to go through me, I said. And I'm harder to move than grain. From the crawl space came a metallic clank. Ruiz shifting position. The men heard it. Shotgun man swung the barrel toward the silo. That was the distraction we needed. I dropped flat. Ruiz's voice cracked through the dark. Police! Drop it! Floodlights snapped on from the unmarked units. Red dots danced across chests. The men froze. Jamie hit the ground beside me, arms over his head. I covered him with my body the way I had when he was 7, and fireworks got too loud. Ruiz emerged from the silo, weapon drawn, backup swarming in. The loan sharks dropped their guns fast. Cuffs clicked like punctuation marks. Jamie sobbed into the dirt, words muffled. I messed up. I messed up so bad. I kept my hand on his back, steady pressure. We're not done yet, I said, but we're done running. Sirens wailed closer, county deputies arriving to clean up the mess. Ruiz hauled Jamie to his feet, gentle despite the cuffs. You're under arrest, kid. Fraud, conspiracy, the works. But you're breathing. That counts. Jamie looked at me, tears cutting tracks through the dust on his cheeks. I didn't want you hurt. I know, I said, but you forgot hurt comes in more ways than bruises. They loaded him into a cruiser. I stood in the floodlights, vest heavy, heart heavier. The decoy envelope lay trampled in the dirt, ink smeared but legible. I picked it up, brushed it off, and tucked it into my pocket. Evidence is evidence, even when it's bait. Ruiz walked over, holstered his weapon. You okay? I touched the graze on my forearm where a splinter from the silo door had caught me. Blood, but not much. I've had worse paper cuts. He shook his head. You're a stubborn old woman. Takes one to know one, I said. The silo loomed behind us, rusted and silent again. I looked up at the stars, sharp as broken glass. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote yipped once and stopped. I thought of the candle I had promised Jamie all those years ago. Light always finds a way. Tonight it had come with badges and floodlights, but it had come. Ruiz offered me a ride home. I took it. The cruiser smelled of vinyl and gun oil and second chances. I leaned my head against the window and watched the cornfields slide by, silver under the moon. Jamie's future was cuffed in the back of another car, but it was still a future. That was enough to carry me home. I still had the porch light on, and tomorrow I would start teaching him how to earn it back. The ambulance smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, the same mix that used to follow me home after graveyard shifts. Paramedics, 2 I had dispatched years ago, worked over my arm with quiet efficiency. The graze was shallow, a red furrow along the muscle, nothing a few stitches wouldn't close. I watched them thread the needle and felt the sting like a distant memory. Pain is easier to bear when you've talked someone else through worse. Jamie sat on the opposite bench, wrists cuffed to the rail, face pale under the harsh lights. His eyes stayed on the floor, shoulders folded inward like a boy waiting for a scolding. The deputy riding shotgun kept one hand near his holster, but his gaze softened every time it landed on me. I had talked his wife through labor once, over the radio, while he drove like a maniac to the hospital. Favors have long memories. The paramedic tied off the last stitch. "You'll want to keep it clean, Mrs. Hart. Tetanus is up to date?" "Every 10 years, I said. "Old habits." He smiled, packed his kit, and stepped out at the ER bay. The deputy followed, leaving Jamie and me alone for the first time since the silo. The ambulance doors hung open to the night, cool air drifting in with the sound of crickets. I shifted on the bench, vest still snug under my coat. "Look at me, Jamie." He lifted his head. Tears had dried into salt tracks on his cheeks. "I didn't mean for guns." "I know what you meant," I said. "You meant to fix a hole by digging a deeper one." He flinched. "They said they'd kill me. Then you. I thought if I gave them the house. You thought wrong." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the crumpled decoy envelope. "This is what you were ready to trade our home for. Paper, lies, fear." He stared at it like it might bite. "I recorded everything," he whispered. "On my phone, before they took it. I knew it might go bad." I felt the recorder still warm against my skin. "Where's the phone now?" "Glove box of the Civic. Password is your birthday." I nodded. Evidence was piling up like snowdrifts. The deputy returned with Ruiz. "We're moving him to county lockup. You riding with us, Evie?" I stood, knees protesting. "I'll follow in my car. Someone needs to turn off the porch light." Ruiz handed me Jamie's keys. "Civic's impounded, but the phone's in evidence. I'll have it to you by morning." I closed my fingers around the keys. Metal, cold, real. At the house, the yellow paint glowed under the porch bulb like a beacon. I left the ambulance idling at the curb and walked the path alone. The tire swing swayed though there was no wind. I killed the light, locked the door, and stood in the sudden dark of the living room. Silence pressed in, thick and waiting. I opened the blue folder on the table and added the decoy envelope, the ambulance discharge papers, the paramedic's card. Every scrap a brick in the wall I was building between my grandson and the consequences he had earned. I slept in the recliner, fully dressed, recorder clipped to my bra like a second heart. At 3:17, the house phone rang. I let it ring twice, then lifted the receiver. Ruiz's voice, low and urgent. "Evie, we've got a problem. Jamie's asking for you. Says there's another document. Something about life insurance." I sat up. "I'll be there in 20. "Bring the vest," he said. The county jail interview room was colder than the ambulance. Jamie sat chained to the table, orange jumpsuit swallowing his frame. Dark circles ringed his eyes, but they were clear. No drugs, just regret. A public defender hovered nearby, young, nervous, clutching a legal pad like a shield. I took the chair across from Jamie. The vest felt heavier now, or maybe I did. "Talk," I said. He swallowed. After the silo, before they cuffed me, I told them where the real money was. The life insurance, $250,000. Beneficiary changed to Lila last month. I thought if they took that, they'd leave the house alone. My pulse thudded once, hard. The policy my husband bought in 1978, paid off the day he died, meant to keep me from ever scrubbing floors again. Show me. He nodded toward the defender. The kid slid a printout across the table. Change of beneficiary form, my forged signature. Lila's name in bold. Date, 4 weeks ago. Notary stamp, Carl Jenkins again. I looked at Jamie. You changed it after the trust? He nodded. I was scared. They kept calling, said interest was compounding. I thought insurance was cleaner. I leaned forward. Jamie, listen carefully. That policy lapses if fraud is proven. They get nothing. You get nothing. And you just handed them another reason to come after us. His face crumpled. I didn't know what else to do. I reached across the table and took his cuffed hand. You start by telling the truth. All of it. On record. Now. The defender set up the recorder. Jamie spoke for 43 minutes. Names, dates, amounts, threats. Every word a stone lifted from his chest. When he finished, his voice was hoarse but steady. I'm done running, Grandma. Whatever happens, I'm done. I squeezed his hand once, then let go. Good, because running never got anybody home. Ruiz met me in the hallway. We picked up the loan sharks. They're talking too. Looks like Jamie was small fry. They'll flip on the bigger fish to save their skins. I handed him the insurance form. Add this to the pile, and get me Lila's current location. He raised an eyebrow. You planning a social call? Planning to make sure she never signs another paper with my name. He nodded. Bus station camera caught her boarding for Chicago an hour ago. We'll have her by morning. Back home, dawn crept through the kitchen window, pale and thin. I brewed coffee I finally drank, black and bitter. The blue folder had grown thick enough to need a rubber band. I added the insurance form, the jail recording transcript, a sticky note with Lila's bus ticket number. Then I opened Jamie's laptop one last time. The cryptocurrency wallet still showed $47,000. I took a screenshot, emailed it to Ruiz with the subject line, Recoverable Assets. I sat at the table until the sun cleared the maple tree. The tire swing caught the light, turning slow circles. I thought of Jamie at 7, begging me to push him higher, laughing when the wind whipped his hair. I thought of him at 19, trading our home for a handful of digital coins and a promise from men with shotguns. Growth is not a straight line. Sometimes it loops back through the dark to find the light again. My phone buzzed. Ruiz. Insurance company's on board. Policy reverts to original beneficiary pending investigation. House title's frozen. You're safe. I exhaled a breath I hadn't known I was holding. And Jamie? Arraignment tomorrow. Judge owes you a favor from that flood in '93. Might go easy if he cooperates. I closed my eyes. Tell him I'll be there. Front row. Will do. A pause. You need anything, Evie? I looked at the blue folder, the coffee ring staining the table, the porch light finally off. Just time, I said, and a new lock on the mailbox. I hung up and walked to the front door. The morning air carried wood smoke and possibility. I stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind me, and locked it with the new key I had cut yesterday. The tire swing stilled. I left the porch light off. Some lights you turn on for others. Some you turn off to remind yourself the dark can't stay forever. I still had the blue folder. And I still had a grandson who needed to learn that redemption starts with showing up. The message glowed behind my eyelids long after the phone locked itself. I looked at the empty driveway one more time. Jamie's tire swing still hung from the maple, swaying though there was no wind. I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and leaned my forehead against the cool wood. Fear tastes metallic, like blood you have not yet spilled. I knew that taste. I had swallowed it for strangers every night for 34 years. Now it was mine. I slipped the phone into my pocket, picked up my keys, and walked to the car. The engine turned over on the second try. I backed out slowly, the way you do when you are afraid to look in the rearview mirror and see what might be missing. At the stop sign, I paused longer than necessary. Maple Lane stretched both ways, quiet and ordinary. Somewhere down one of those directions, my grandson was either running or being taken. I did not know which scared me more. I pressed the accelerator. The yellow house shrank in the mirror, porch light still burning against the daylight. I left it on. Old habits. You never know when someone might need to find their way home. I wish I could say my heart stayed steady the whole drive. It did not. But my hands did, and that was enough for now.